It was October in 1955 when my father ran away from Ireland and from his Aunt Mary. The original plan was that he would get a good job and be educated, and he'd send the money back to his family down the country. But instead, he borrowed £7 and 10 shillings and booked his passage on the Princess Maud, the old ferry that ran between Dublin and Holyhead. And he was 17 when he arrived in this country with nothing but his enthusiasm and his culture. He was the youngest of four, born into a rural way of life on a little farm in the county of Leitrim, in the west of Ireland. And in the early part of the 20th century, my grandfather was coming to terms with the realisation that his little farm wasn't going to sustain his growing family. So in effect, the family was broken up. Peter was the eldest, and he was to stay on the farm, work the land, and one day inherit. And he's still there now, he's in his 80s, never married, never had any children. Jim was the second eldest. My Uncle Jim was working his keep with relations that ran a pub in the village. Aunt Peggy was born with Down syndrome, and she'd been spirited away to an institution in Dublin a long time before I was born. My grandfather was born in 1886, and he was the youngest of 11, and all of his siblings, bar one, the eldest Mary, had gone to America and Canada to start new lives for themselves, and some had become quite successful. So my granddad ran the farm in Leitrim, and Aunt Mary ran the family from Dublin. My dad now has Alzheimer's, suffering with Alzheimer's, and as I'm sure you're aware, people who have that condition suffer or experience short-term memory loss, quite profound short-term memory loss. But the irony is they appear to be able to recall incidences from earlier in their life with ever-increasing clarity. So we hear this story quite often, with different details all the time. And the way that Dad tells it, it's a sad story. It's a story of deception. Maybe not cruelty, but possibly heartlessness. A story of how a young boy was lured away from his family with the promise of a ride on a bus, a chance to see the big city and to have ice cream for his tea. He'd never been on a bus before. It was coming towards the end of the summer on a rare visit to the country by Aunt Mary. When it came time for her to return to Dublin, Dad was invited to go with her. He'd get a ride on the bus, see the big city, ice cream for tea. Dad recalls being in Aunt Mary's dining room in Dublin with the ice cream all finished up, slightly disappointed with the big city as it turned out, and with the memory of the bus ride fading, he asked if he could go home, only to be told that he wouldn't be going home now until Christmas, and he was 8 years old. The following day he was enrolled with the Christian Brothers, where he spent the next 9 years having his education beaten into him. But that's only part of the story, and that's the way that Dad tells it, but it's become increasingly interesting to me. But at that time in Irish history, emigration was of course a way of life. And sadly it appears to be back again now in the 21st century. As such, the Irish traditional songbook is jam-packed with songs with emigration as its theme. Some are celebratory and encouraging, but most are warnings and laments. Come all you loyal Irishmen and listen all for a while. All you that want to emigrate and leave the Emerald Isle. A kind advice I will give you is you must bear in mind how you will be forsaken when you leave your land behind. Well, my name is Edward Connors and the same I'll ne'er disown. I used to live in happiness near unto Port Glenone. I sold my farm, as you will hear, which grieves my heart full sore. And I sailed away to America, I left the Shamrock shore. For my mind it was deluded by letters that were sent by those that a few years ago to Canada had went. They said that they like princes lived and were earning gold galore, and they laughed at our misfortune here at home on the Shamrock shore. So it's with my wife and my family to Belfast I went down. I booked our passage on a ship to Quebec she was bound. My money it was growing short when I put in sea store, but I thought me fortune would be won if I reached the other shore. And when we were scarce 3 days at sea, a storm it soon arose. It threw our ship on her beam ends and woke us from our repose. Our sea store then it was destroyed by water that down did pour. How happy we would then have been at home on the Shamrock shore. And when we were 9 long days at sea, our sea store was all gone. Out on the ocean wide with nowhere for to run. But for our captain's kindliness he kindly gave us more. We would have died of hunger, but we reached the other shore. And it's when we landed in Quebec, oh the sight that met our eyes. 300 of our Irish boys, which did us so surprise. With a sorrowful lamentation, charity they did crave, and the little trifle we could spare to them we freely gave. So we stayed around in the town of Quebec, hoping some work to find. My money it was growing short, which troubled my mind. For I had friends when I had cash, but none when I was poor. And I never met with friendship yet, like this on the Shamrock shore. So we hung around in the town of Quebec till our money it was all gone. Still hoping for employment, but work we could find none. And in this place it was the case with many hundreds more, who oft times wished that they were back at home on the Shamrock shore. So come all who are intending strange countries to roam. Bear in mind you have as good as Canada at home. Before that you cross over the main, where foaming billows roar, think on the happy days you spent at home on the Shamrock shore. Thank you.